happy Thursday. Well, if you could hear the wind outside, what a difference a day makes. Yesterday it was beautiful. Everybody but me was moaning that it was too hot. But as I said before, I was obviously born in the wrong country because I was like, bring it on, bring it on. I love it, I love it. It wasn't the 100 degrees like you get in places otherwise, yeah. But now, I mean, I went out this morning because it was my cafe day. I was going to meet my friends. One of them couldn't meet me because she was waiting in for the phone call from the doctor. You cannot get a doctor's appointment in the UK, in some practices, for love nor money. So she was waiting in for a telephone consultation, you know. Very clever, the doctors in the UK. They can diagnose you from a distance, yeah. So she couldn't come. So anyway, I went. Going up, it wasn't too bad. It was a little windy, but I just had a small jacket on. Didn't have a big anorak, whatever. Little jacket. Quite okay. You know, the tide was coming rolling in, so the workmen weren't there. Oh yeah, they were there when I was going down. I'm telling a lie now. They were there. But because the tide was rolling in, they were actually on their way back to wherever they store the wagons. And I was going to get the camera out, but they were taking so long. They were there and I thought, I'll get in front of them and I'll take them like they're a convoy coming along. You know, the great big yellow wagons that look like Tonka toys, yeah? Or gigantic Tonka toys. I thought, I'll get in front of them and I'll wait. Well, I waited and I waited and I waited and I don't know where they went. So in the end I thought, oh, I'll do this on the way back. I can't keep waiting like this. So off I goes, because I thought I'm going to be late for meeting my friend at the cafe. So she got a new electric bike. Yeah, she has. Great. So she turned up on her electric bike. So we went in and had, I didn't have fish and chips, even though it's renowned as a fish and chip, like restaurant, whatever you want to call it. It's called the Ferry Cafe if you're in Fleetwood. I had a meat and potato, or as I'm supposed to call it nowadays, I think a potato and meat pie, with just a sprinkle of chips and gravy. You have to have gravy. You have to have gravy when you're having a pie. And a few mushy peas, or Manchester caviar as they call them. And my friend had a baked potato with cheese. So, but she didn't have the salad with it this time. Usually it comes with a big plate of greenery. And as she's not a lover of cucumber and things like that, she just asked for it plain today. Frida Kahlo cooked today. Anyway, coming down back from, well, I had to go to the doctor's to pick up some tests. You know, I told you I had the blood test and they haven't told me what the results of that is yet. So I had to go and pick up 2 sample test things. One is the one we don't mind doing, you know, the little pot of the sample, yeah. But the other one is the unpleasant one that a lot of people dodge. It isn't pleasant having to take samples of you know what, but it's very, very important, isn't it? Not that I'm thinking I have got anything untoward. I don't think that at all. I'm not a worrywart, you know, that thinks, oh my God, I've got this, I've got the big C every time they do a test on me. It's just purely to rule everything out. And if you have been dodging your test, then I do beg you to go and have it done, because it is so useful in early diagnosis. You know, I believe if they diagnose it early enough, then, you know, all is fine. But of course, if you keep ignoring the symptoms, and then you finally go, they're the ones you read about in the paper that give you palpitations, like, oh, I don't want to take the test in case I've got this. But anyway, I'm not going to be pleasant to do it. I'm not going to go into details, don't worry, just in case you're eating. So I will do that and take it back Monday, because I've got to go to the library. I should explain that the doctor's is the opposite end of the town to me. So I don't feel like doing 2 trips if I don't have to go there. So I'm hoping to have collected my samples by Monday morning, and off I will go to the library and to the GP. So we shall see, yeah. Anyway, I was thinking, I have to sit in my shower because balance is dodgy, yeah. Age thing, you know what I'm saying, dodgy balance. So I was sitting on my shower chair, washing my hair, getting my shower, and thinking, how lucky are you, Jenna? How lucky are you? Until you were the age of 12, you didn't even have a bathroom or an indoor toilet. And here you are now with all mod cons. Turn the shower on, flicker the switch, hot water. Because we've got one of those combi boilers, you know, that instant hot water. Because even when I was 12, I think, before we had a bathroom put in. But even then, you had to remember, or Mum had to remember, which was more Mum because it was high up, a little switch called an immersion heater. I don't know whether you have them if you're in the US. And it was like an element thing or whatever it heated the tank of water enough for you to have your bath. But you never had the luxury of a bath like people do today where it's up to here, you know. You literally had about 4 or 5 inches of water before the hot water ran out, yeah. But I was thinking, I was sat in the shower doing my ablutions and thinking, you're so lucky. You know, I was just been watching, like, Lucy doing these video things on YouTube, you know, through Lucy's lens, about all these people. And then even today I was watching, she was doing Cadbury's Bournville, where Cadbury's, they were Quakers, and they built all this accommodation for their workers, for the, you know, the Cadbury's chocolate factory, because they didn't want them, you know, living in squalor, and they built their houses with bathrooms and that. I did actually go, well, I didn't go on a tour of Cadbury's, which was, I thought I was going on a trip to Cadbury's World. No. I'd been booked on a trip to Bournville, to Cadbury's, but we just toured the outside of it. Had a lecture about the houses and who'd built them, blah-de, blah-de, blah, and I'm thinking, leave me to the chocolate. Because at the time, I wasn't even a diabetic, I would have been there. Scrounging the chocolate, you know. I thought we were going to the factory, you know, the shop at the factory. It was so disappointing. Anyway, that's by the by. So I was like watching this. But we did get told like a fact like about this Bournville when it was first built is different now. People, you know. It was only for people who worked at the factory. And because they were Quakers, they didn't allow any alcohol or anything like that. So there was no public houses and there was no shops that sold, you know, tins, alcohol or anything. So, and everything that you bought, you were encouraged, I've got a hair, you were encouraged to buy it in the shops that were in Bournville, yeah. Because it was like ploughing the profits back. It was sort of like a cooperative, you know. So the guy that was doing this coach trip that we went on was saying, it was very, very funny because it's a wonder that the Cadbury brothers didn't notice how many people were taking up brass instruments to play. Trombones, some, you know, tubas, big cases with the instrument in. What they didn't realise was people weren't going to band practice. People were going to the next town where there was a place that sold alcohol. And they were putting them in, the band instruments, cases. There was no instrument in the case. They were taking the band instrument cases and then coming back with them. So if anybody spotted them. Because I do believe they actually had houses with 3 stories. And some people were paid extra to spy on people to make sure that they were going to church, they were being whatever. They didn't have bad morals, anything like that. And they definitely weren't drinking alcohol or they weren't intoxicated. So the only way they could get past these spies was to carry their tinnies or, oh gosh, his hair's a bit high, tinnies or whatever it was, past whoever was spying on them, you know, and take them in to the house. I got it. So I thought that was a funny bit of history. Things that people used to do, yeah. But, so what have I been doing really? No. As I was saying, I went to the cafe, everything was fine, I was there in my little velvet jacket. What have I got on to? I've actually found that little top, I think I told you the other day, when I found the pattern, it was in white on the pattern, and I said, I've got it somewhere. So today I thought, I'll go and look for it. Because I'm wearing a skirt that's got sort of that colour in it. I can't remember who sent me this. It was actually sent, I'm sure it was sent from America. It might have been Grace that sent it to me. Anyway, it's got, even got little sequiny things. Where's it gone? There, little sequins. Not very many of them, but just an odd one or two. You know me, my love of glitter and glamour. Anyway, back to the story. God, I do digress, don't I? Back to the story. I come back down the seafront and it was like a different day. It was blowing a gale. It was nearly battering me off the seafront. Needless to say, the wagons weren't there. The big diggers and things had gone because the tide was rolling in. And when I say the tide was rolling in, the tide was lashing in. And I was, in fact, once again, I think, no, where's the camera when you need it? Because the waves were crashing in and they were spraying up in the air. Something that looks fabulous when you're watching it, when you're not actually in it or driving past it. And an unexpected whoosh comes over the top. Luckily, I've got plastic on top of my scooter, so Janet didn't get wet. So it wasn't raining or anything like that. It was just really, really stormy. Yeah. And it was places where I thought they'd put the sea defences in, and I'm thinking, well, it's still coming, not over the top, but it's still splashing up in the air. Yeah. So that was my day so far. Not a very interesting day, really. I've got me knitting out. I'm actually on the last sleeve now. That's a finished sleeve. I'll be getting back to my crochet after this. And that's the sleeve I'm doing now, yeah. I did watch another lady, what was she called? Oh gosh. And she said, guess what I'm crocheting? And she was actually crocheting, I could tell it was a Taylor Swift dress. Talking about that, my heading for the video, the autocorrect has changed Taylor Smith into Taylor, as in, you know, the ones who sew with a needle thread. I noticed it today and I thought, oh, I can't be bothered to go in and change it. I thought everybody who's seen my video probably thinks she doesn't know how to spell Taylor. I did. I spelt it right, but autocorrect decided to turn it into a little old man that sews suits for a living, yeah. That kind of a tailor, yeah. Still, never mind. You all know what I meant. I'm just trying to think what this lady's called. She's a blonde lady. If I remember, I'll put it underneath her name. And I do watch her. Yes, I do watch her, yeah, but not as a regular. But I could tell she was making the dress because it was the coloured, you know, the granny square. And she was going, I'm making a wearable, but you'll have to wait till Monday, she said, until I show you what I'm making. And I thought, it's going to not take her long, is it? She's going to make that dress. And she's only going to do it till Monday. That's not going to take her long, is it? Yeah? I mean, I've got to finish something for Monday that I haven't even started yet. But it is only a little boho top. I think I mentioned that one of the girls at Knit Club, her sister, it's her birthday in July. So she just said to me, I don't suppose you've got a black one, have you? And I said, well, I don't. So I said, well, I can do one, because I mean, they don't take that long to crochet, so it's not like, you know, she's asked me to make a king-size bedding duvet for, like, Monday, you know. So I will try and finish it off for Monday. I need to ask her a couple of measurements, though. You know, how wide she is, like, under her bust, you know, so that I can get the back bit. I mean, a lot of them have got hardly any back, and they've got loads and loads of lacing. But the one that she's seen has actually got more back and less lacing, so I think that's what she wants, yeah. While you're talking about windswept and wonderful, I switched on to what Sheila, as I do. Sheila's knitting tips and other stuff, yeah. And she'd come in from the garden and her hair was all stuck up on end. And she said, this is what happens when you've got like flimsy hair. And I thought, I'm with you there, Sheila. I've got flimsy hair. But she was also saying, somebody had sent her some happy mail, and in it was some mug, and she was like holding it like that. And somebody had accused her of not being grateful. But she said, I'm allergic to it. And I know how she feels, because I'm totally allergic to pure wool. I can scratch myself raw with pure wool. People have said, oh, try merino, try alpaca, try this, try that, try the other a little, you'll be fine. No, I just itch with anything that's remotely from an animal, yeah. And she was like holding it like that. But she was saying that her mum never believed her when she kept saying she was a whingy child, because she was always itchy. I was the same. I've always had arthritis. I've had arthritis from being a child, yeah. And I had it up the fronts of your leg bones. I don't know what they're called. Tibia, fibia, whatever. The leg bones at the front. And I used to cry and cry. And in my day, they used to call it growing pains. I mean, since, you know, there's no such thing as growing pains. It's juvenile arthritis. And it is so painful. Really painful. And when I was little, of course, I didn't know why my legs were so painful. And I used to cry and cry. And my mum was always sending for the GP for me. You know, and because I'd be crying, and I wouldn't go to sleep because I'm up all night crying. So it was the days when they used to visit, you know, I've got all that memory, when the GPs used to actually visit you at the home, yeah. And they always used to say the same thing, like give a junior aspirin, which I mean they wouldn't now. Give me something else, wouldn't they? And keep her legs warm. So my mum used to knit me knee-length woolen socks to wear, because we always wore skirts back in the day. There was no such thing as a little girl wearing tights, leggings, even trousers. No. Right when I was a little child, you couldn't. You had to wear a skirt. And the boys up to a certain age had to wear shorts. It could be a foot of snow outside. But, you know, you had to put your wellies on and get to school. There was none of this, oh, school's closed down, none of this namby-pamby stuff. You know, your coat would be sopping wet and you'd be trying to find a bit of radiator or somewhere to hang it, so it would be dry enough for you to put back on again when you were going home. Oh, the horrible, when you put your arms down a wet coat, you know. I mean, the school was quite warm, actually. We had it used to be a coke-fired, not coal, a coke-fired boiler in the school. But it used to have radiators and it was quite warm. So you'd be nice and warm and then it's time to go home, isn't it? So you go to find your wellies and they're still damp inside, because that's if they were still there. Somebody else hadn't walked off with your wellies even though you had your name in them. So you put your feet back into these damp Wellington boots, and then you come to put your coat on, don't you? And you put your arms down the sleeves, and the sleeves are still wet. Because of course the cloakroom, where we used to leave our coats and that, we all had pegs, you know, like with our names on, hooks. We used to call them a peg. Hooks with your name written on. And you all had your own one, and a little mesh box where you put your shoes and your plimsolls, your pumps, your whatever you call them, what we used to use for PT, long before there was trainers. They were called pumps, plimsolls. They were canvas and rubber. They were cheap forms of, and we only wore them for PT or PE, whatever you want to call it. So we were not allowed to go into PE, into the hall, with outdoor shoes. So if you didn't have your pumps or your plimsolls with you, or somebody had stolen them, they were actually wearing them and you couldn't find them, you had to do it either in your socks or your bare feet. And I mean, can you imagine a highly polished gym floor with a child with socks? It made gymnastics very hairy, I can tell you, you know. You'd be sliding from one end to the other. So we would do it in bare feet, so you'd get some purchase, you'd get some grip on the floor. But it's no wonder we all have verrucas, is it, you know? Because like I said before, when I was at junior school, a lot of the children didn't have access to any kind of indoor sanitation. You know, they had a bath once a week in a tin bath and that was it. So you can imagine all these little stinky feet sliding up and down, sorry for your eating, little stinky feet sliding up and down on this wooden floor. I mean, it's a wonder we didn't get all kinds of diseases, yeah. Yeah, so my mum made me a pump bag. It was a bag with a drawstring, a bit like project bags, but before that. Just made out of a cheap piece of material, you know, maybe an old sheet, an old pillowcase, something like that. And it would have a drawstring through it, so you hung it on your peg, on your hook. You didn't put it in, and you hid it under your coat. So that if anybody was like, oh, I don't have a pair of pumps, that she's got my size. No, I was clever. I think my mum got fed up after buying me 2 pairs of pumps, you know, because we didn't have a lot of money. So she made me this pump bag and hide it behind your coat. And it was the same with hats and mittens. It was always put your hat down the sleeve of your coat so nobody will see it. And then mittens, of course, we had the dreaded tape or elastic through the sleeves. Come on, you've all had them, haven't you? And if your mum made them too tight, as you went out with one hand like that, the other hand went up like that, you nearly hit yourself in the face with them. The worst idea was elastic. I mean, when you let go of the elastic, they shot up your sleeves, you know. But I must confess that I did similar with my son when he was little, because he was always losing his mittens. He couldn't do gloves for a long time. You know what little ones are like, they can't get the fingers down the right holes, can they? So we always made him mittens until he mastered the art of getting the right finger down the right hole. And he was always losing them, always losing them. My aunt used to love knitting mittens for some reason, and she used to say, does he need any mittens? And I'd say, yeah, he does. And she would always knit me 3. 3 mittens. Not 2 or 4, 3. Because she could get 3 out of this ball of wool, and she always said, he's going to lose one. He's bound to lose one, which he always did. And he also had this habit of, I used to call it, cleaning people's windows on the way to school. Across the window ledge. Dirty, dirty mitten. Filthy mitten. And if he was in his pram when he was very, very little, he would put his hand on the wheel. You know, you're like, don't do that, because you'll have no fingers, you know. I had all these visions of him, you know, getting his fingers in the spokes of the wheel. But no, if you didn't watch him, he would trail his hand along the tyre of his pushchair. So that's why we always needed a lot of good supply of mittens. Because sometimes they'd be so rotten, you couldn't get them clean. No matter how hard you tried, you couldn't get them clean. So going back to that, I used to have the long woolen socks that my mum used to make me. And oh my goodness, did they itch. And I used to be pushing them down to my ankles And then I would get in trouble at school because she said, pull your socks up, pull your socks up. Or if my mum saw me, pull your socks up. And I used to say, I used to make an excuse, they've gone baggy at the top, Mum. They keep sliding down. She saw through that one. She made me what we used to call garters. It was a length of, dare I say it, knicker elastic. She used to put it round, the socks used to turn over at the top, the hand knitted socks. They always had a cuff at the top. So she would put this elastic round and turn the cuff over. They won't fall down now, she used to say. I thought they will, because the minute I leave this house they're going down around my ankles. Oh, they did used to itch. And then in the winter they used to put you in woolen vests. Oh boy. Cherub, I think they were called. If you're in the UK, you know what I'm talking about. I think they were called cherub. Woolen vests. And they always took on this horrible colour after a while. Because it didn't matter how well your mum washed anything. It was wool and it used to go this horrible yellowed colour. So they never looked properly clean. Because the cotton ones were white. You wore those in the summer. But in the winter, you wore your woolly vest and you wore a Liberty bodice. Some of you will know what I'm talking about. Some of you will not have a clue. A Liberty bodice was like a felt, but it wasn't felt, it was like plain on one side and fleece on the other. And it was like similar to this shape, except it had, you know, armholes like that. And it had little rubber buttons down the front. And it was to keep your chest warm. Bear in mind, you see, I mean, nobody had central heating, and when you were out playing and that, you could get really cold, yeah. So you had to wear your Liberty bodice. But what used to fascinate me was these Liberty bodices used to have either buttonholes at the bottom. They only came to your waist or a little bit lower down. They either had buttons round or they had buttonholes. And when I was little I used to wonder why, you know. But apparently the generation before, like my mum, they actually used to wear like thick knitted stockings as they got to a certain age group. And there was no such thing as suspender belts, garter belts, whatever you want to call them. So they used to have buttons and they used to button them onto their Liberty bodies. I mean, honestly, they're things we used to have to wear. Oh dear. I suppose I ought to be grateful that we'd grown out of the red flannel underskirts. You know, if you watch The Railway Children, the film with Jenny Agutter, you know, she used her red flannel petticoat underskirt to flag the train down to warn the train there was something on the track or something like that. So thankfully I didn't have to wear, and I didn't have to get stitched into my vests like they used to do. They used to put brown paper and goose grease and everything on chests to ward off the cold. Oh God, they must have stunk. Anyway, I'm going to go now and finish off my... Tomorrow, I'm going to hope to get into the shed actually, because I do need to sort out some things, but then again I need to finish this and I need to start the boho top in black, so I don't really know what I'm going to do. I'm sure I'll think of something to do. So I hope you don't mind me waffling on about my memories, but I did have a really nice childhood. Despite the shortages, the deprivation and the woolly socks. Anyway, if you like this video, do a thumbs up, subscribe, do the notification bell, because you never know, they might tell you I've made a video. They never do with me, but you know, you might be lucky. And as I said before, tell all your friends, because I like more friends, and you're all creep, oh, and you don't mind me when I waffle on. So I'm going to waffle to myself now, because I'm going to finish the sleeve, hopefully tonight. So bye for now, speak to you soon.